Hey kids, this video is coming to you in 2 parts. Part 1, Friday failed to upload her video on time last week. 2 weeks ago. And as a result, she must be punished. So we're going to do what we did last time. Stick your suggestions for punishments in the comments. We'll decide what happens to her down there. Part 2, my question. Is homeschooling a biblical imperative? This past week, the debate tournament I was at, I had a fascinating conversations with this girl I adore. Oh, I love her so much. And we had a conversation about homeschooling, and she was saying how the public school system, because it is such a caustic environment, because there are so many kids like doing drugs and getting in fights, problems. There are a lot of problems in the public school systems, and to an extent in the private and Christian schools as well. And she was saying that the duty of parents is to protect their kids from ungodliness in order to train them in the way they should go. To answer this question, we have to look to the Bible first of all. So that's what I did. I have a list of verses here. The first one is in Proverbs 22, train up a child in the way he should go, and he will not depart from it. Ephesians 6:4, which says, fathers, do not something your children. As you can see, I know this verse really well. No, that's not what I wanted. Ephesians 4:6, fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. And then finally, my favorite verse. Oh, this is such a good one. Deuteronomy 11:18-21. Fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them at home and when you walk down the road and when you lie down and when you get up. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates, so that the days of your children may be many in the land that the Lord has sworn to give to your forefathers. The role of parents is to train their kids in godly spiritual things. And that's what my parents have done, and I'm learning this lesson kind of the hard way this week. That my parents exist to help mold and develop my moral and spiritual character, and I owe them my life for that. But those verses don't necessarily mention the educational aspect of training your children up. And knowledge, in fact, is something that the Bible says puffs up, whereas love builds up. The Bible doesn't talk much about an imperative for knowledge education. And I also think that parents training their children up is not mutually exclusive from those kids going to a more a traditional parochial school. Parochial school? Is that what I mean? I don't know if that's what I mean. Going to a school with other kids in the same grade. And while I am not the biggest fan of the public school system, I think it has lots of flaws. And I like being homeschooled. When she asked me if I thought I would homeschool my kids, first I was freaked out by the thought of having kids, and secondly I thought, probably not. I probably wouldn't homeschool my kids unless God told me to. And my friend said, well, I think homeschooling is less of a calling and more of an imperative, because homeschooling is the easiest way for parents to train their children up in the Lord and the instruction of the Lord, because if they're around their kids all the time, it's easier for them to instruct their kids as they're developing. And I think that this makes a lot of sense, that maybe it's not so much trying to protect and shelter your child from the evil in this world, because I mean, there's evil in the home as well. Kids may not be having drug deals going on outside this door. Well, we get into fights a lot. But a lot of the stuff that happens in the public school doesn't happen in my house, and yet still, there's the issue of sin in my house. It's not necessarily a sheltering of the kids from their environment, but making sure that the parents are always there to be constantly reinforcing scriptural truths in their children. And I don't think that's a wrong viewpoint. However, I don't think the Bible says you have to homeschool your children. I don't see that anywhere in the Bible. I think for a lot of people, public schooling or private schooling or Christian school or whatever, they've prayed about this decision for their children and it's turned out okay for them. Do you think homeschooling unnecessarily shelters children from the real world? And do you think that because homeschooling is the most effective way to make sure that you are always around your kids and always training them up in spiritual laws, it is therefore the best form of education? Or do you think there's something to be said for the awesomeness of public school or private school or Christian school? And what would be the biblical support for that? I'm finding once I ask one question, it has all these other sub-questions that go with it, and I just don't know enough. It drives me crazy. Good story. See you guys later. Bye.